Hey, Bob, how's it going?
Okay, good to see you.
Did you have a nice Easter?
Uh, yeah, I went out to Snug Harbor with a friend. We were hoping to see the cherry blossoms, but we got there a week too late.
Yeah,
So maybe next.
It's like seeing peak leaf season. It's like 20 minutes in which you get to do it.
Right, right.
Hi, Valerie. Were you away? You're muted. Valerie, I think you, oh no, you can't hear me. Can you hear me?
Yep.
You posted pictures from somewhere pretty.
Oh.
Were you in Texas?
No.
Oh, you just posted pretty pictures.
Oh. Thank you. Thank you.
Rita, are you still in France? You're muted, but you're back.
I am back, and I brought home a little friend with me called COVID.
Oh, I have that too. But wait, you were able to get home.
I got tested. I was fine when I left. When I got tested at home, when I got home, I was positive.
How are your symptoms?
Really mild, and but you know, my doctor put me on Paxlovid, which really just wipes me out. Just wipes me out.
Yeah, I wiped him out, but he got rid of it in like 2 days. I decided
really?
Yeah, I mean, in his case, I didn't take it, but my symptoms are pretty mild.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you're not feeling well.
Sucks. I'm sorry.
I think anybody that's traveling is like catching it now.
Everybody who's anybody is catching it.
But do you think you caught it on the plane?
You know, I don't know, but it's like the only, I mean, I can't say that I caught it on the plane. It is the first time in a very, very long time that I was in any kind of group. So
I just think there's no way of knowing. I mean, so many people have it now that, or have had it.
Wildly contagious.
Right.
And
But
just,
the recovery period is good. That's what's good to know.
Yeah.
yeah, mine is like 5 days old. It's fine.
Mhm. I went for my booster shot a few days ago, so I now have 4 shots inside of me.
All right.
And my husband went for his shot as well, and his arm swelled up. That's the only side effect he had.
But you know, the thing is, there's waning efficacy of those boosters. So it's really great right now. But I think we all have to be on the lookout for, you know, when that's going to be on the downward slope.
Right.
And see what the recommendations are.
Right now they're saying 5 months between shots.
Yeah.
I mean, if this were the symptoms, I mean, it's no big deal. Well, if I get
No
it,
big deal. I think it varies widely between those who have been vaccinated and those who are not vaccinated.
Right.
Those who are unvaccinated still experience the same kind of crisis.
yeah.
But for those of us who are, it's like getting the flu.
Yeah, in my case, more like getting a cold.
Yeah. All right, I better start taking attendance here before Janine cracks the whip.
Janine is totally in silhouette right now. There you go.
So now, Susanna, I'm going to be going to Milan because 3 of my really good friends have moved there
Oh, how nice. I'm going there in mid-May.
mid-May.
Yeah, to visit my mom, my 94-year-old mother who went into the ocean this weekend, into the Mediterranean this weekend.
Wow, that is so cool.
Janine, you're muted.
Thanks for letting me know.
We're screaming into the wind. No one
Yes, exactly. Take 2. Good evening. Welcome to Manhattan Community Board 2's April Executive Committee meeting. I'm Janine Kiley, Chair of Community Board 2. And I want to start with my chair's report.
What about attendance? Oh, okay, never mind. Sorry.
Yeah, Ritu just takes attendance while we're here. So I just want to, this is an executive meeting. It's a business session. The public is welcome to listen, but we do not take public testimony at this meeting. For full board, the public can submit testimony or sign up to speak. We will not be voting on any resolutions tonight. We'll be voting on all the resolutions that the committees passed at our full board meeting next Tuesday. But I do want to thank everyone for their participation. We have about 33 attendees and we have 25, more than half of our board members are on this call, so thank you. In terms of virtual meetings, I sent some emails around, but I just wanted to, that we're virtual through June 8th. After that, we'll be hybrid, which means we need to have 50% of the board members more than 50% in person of board members to have a quorum, or for committee or at board level. So if the committee has 9 people on it, counting public members, we would need 5 people in person. Board members who are not in person can still vote. I'm following legislation, and there were changes. One of the bills that Senator Hoylman is pushing through moved to another level today, but I haven't had a chance to catch up on that. But Albany is in the state government's in session until I think June 2nd. So there could be changes to this, but this is the current plan. I want to address overlapping meetings. Obviously, we try to avoid these, but with holidays and scheduling issues, we can't always do that. This next Thursday, we have 2 committee meetings, Human Services and the Downtown Cannabis Forum. The Human Services will be via Zoom, and the forum will be at the Sheen Center, and we're working with the Borough President's office on the tech side to be able to stream that. And obviously have a recording. So if you want to see what happens at both meetings, you can watch the videos later on CB2's YouTube channel or live stream them on our. Susanna, have you heard any update on that? You're now muted.
No, I have not, but our meeting
Okay.
is next Thursday, isn't it? The 28th?
Yes, the 28th.
Okay. I thought you said this Thursday. Yeah. No, I have
next
not
Thursday,
heard
the
anything further. I'm sorry.
Okay, so we're gonna try to stagger the meetings. We're still just waiting for confirmation on starting the Human Services meeting a little bit earlier. Shirley is not able to join us tonight, but for Trump TNT, but they have a fairly extensive agenda, so we're gonna need to get a second Zoom for that because staggering the meetings won't be sufficient. They won't have enough time, most likely an hour will be enough time to finish the agenda before SLA 2 starts. In terms of full board this month, I guess I just first want to thank everyone since we have so many board members on. We have 26 people on, one minus Bob and Josh, so 24 board members on. Just really want to thank everyone who was able to stay and listen to the public testimony. It was a bit unusual we typically do not take that extensive of public testimony at our full board meetings. We never, usually when we have a large number of speakers, we encourage people to, a couple people to speak for large groups, cut the time down and so forth. We did not do that. We will be doing that going forward. So for our full board meeting next week, we'll have a time limit for elected officials. And everybody always asks who's coming, and nobody tells us if they're coming until the day of. Captain Spataro is also coming from the 6th Precinct, and he'll be speaking. And then we'll be starting with some hopefully more efficient systems. So this will be our beta first test, but we're on a call with Josh and another community board and Borough President's office today. You've already seen on our calendar, you can sign up to speak at the public session via Google document. In fact, that'll just make it easier for those of us running the meeting because we'll have a running list. We're also going to ask people to submit testimony online via Google document. And then a viewing version of that will be available to the public and all board members. So you can read everyone's testimony that's submitted or skim it or look for key search words, whatever the case may be. And just before I finish, do I have any questions from board members? Donna?
So I had about the scheduling of the traffic and transportation with the SLA. Since Shirley isn't here, I don't know what the agenda is, but I think I've raised this before. A lot of these things are going to start overlapping with the interests of people that attend the SLA meetings, both on the committee and from the public. When we go in person in after June, I just want to raise this again, as I think it's a potential issue. So maybe we can start talking now about seeing if there's some way we can have these meetings not be on the same night.
Well, absolutely. Shirley's not here. She's
Right.
under the weather. So we can discuss that. When we go through the calendar, we do have Tuesday, the 10th open of May and Monday, the 16th. So for board members who have multiple meetings, why don't you take a look at that?
Okay.
Coral?
Sorry. Yeah, I just had a question about the submitted testimony. If maybe we could ask everyone to, like, they could be separated, like for and against whatever the issue is, and then just the list of names as well. Just so, just to make it very expedient and sort of seeing how many people and who they.
Well, we'll be able to do both. And this is the first time. So let's be patient. We still have to set up the Google form and the document, but we'll probably keep them in the order so we don't keep sorting them. So if you read it Tuesday morning and you read number 25, that doesn't shift to be number 52, but we'll be able to add, it's a spreadsheet, so you can count cells and you can add stuff and keep a running total.
Great, thanks.
So we should be able to do that.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on sort of meeting process? Okay. I just want to address a few. Oh, Donna, you have another question?
Yeah, I did have one other thing. I know you addressed the two meetings scheduled on the 28th or whatever day it is, but I just want to say I think it's really unfortunate that had to happen that way, and I'm sorry that it did. I don't think it's great for the board to have that going on that way. So
thank you for your opinion, and I agree. But sometimes when we're coordinating with lots of different people, we don't have as much flexibility as we would like. I just want to address a couple local issues. As you know, last month, we heard an outpouring of opposition, fear, and concern from our community in Chinatown and Little Italy. We received more than 3,600 postcard petitions that are in the CB2 office and more than 25 letters in opposition to the shelter, and heard 4 hours of additional testimony from a community that has felt unheard, lives in fear, and is currently divided between 3 community boards downtown, community boards 1, 2, and 3. Continue to reach out to the borough president's office about the need for more translation and support services. On the trash and front, I think everyone saw the announcement that streets that are currently alternate side of the street parking have been scheduled to be cleaned once a week, and now they're going to be scheduled to be cleaned twice a week. If you read comments in the New York Times or Gothamist, you'll hear lots of people say, well, they're scheduled to be cleaned, but it's actually never cleaned. I don't know about that. Separately, we've had, Shirley's not here, I'll just mention this. The streets that don't have alternate side of the street parking are currently not being cleaned at all, which includes, like, for example, large parts of Soho are no parking 8 to 6 Monday through Friday. So Adam Zeldin, who I don't believe is on, is working to see what we can pull from open data to see what streets are being cleaned, which ones aren't. And then DOT said we should pass a resolution if there are streets that we'd like to see cleaned. And separately, Lillian Torado, the captain of enforcement for the Department of Sanitation, sent an email, I think yesterday, asking if there are any concerns in your community that the board, that CB2 would like us to, the board would like us to assist you on.
Yes.
Yeah, the answer is yes. And because this is an executive, I think every single person will have a complaint or an issue. So I want to come up with a better way to, so I would like everyone to just email Bob and I, and then I'll try to come up with, see if we have more specific things. But obviously, I personally am getting complaints from board members and neighbors all the time about the trash issues. So I think the answer is yes.
Yes.
So Coral, I'm getting some suggestions, but literally we'll come up with a better way to do this. The rest of everything else I think is in the committee reports, so I will end it there. Bob, district manager's report.
All right, thanks, Janine. Just have a few quick things this month. First, 2 or 3 board members have brought to our attention that they've seen, I think, Community Board 4 calendar items posted on Link NYC, and Josh has been on that, and I think, if not right now, in the very near future, you'll start seeing our meetings posted there as well. So that's, I think that's a step in the right direction. If anyone's been over by 8th Street and 6th Avenue, you might have noticed that the old Barnes and Noble location is finally going to be occupied. Spectrum is going to be moving in there on May 5th. They're actually already in there and they're training their staff, but the store will open on May 5th. And right across the street, right across 8th Street, Serafina will be moving into that corner location sometime later in the summer. So that gateway to 8th Street will finally be occupied. Also, at my district service cabinet meeting, Nicole Barth mentioned that Eric Botch's office has 40 rat-proof residential garbage cans that they want to give away to constituents. So if they still have enough of those left, we'll let folks know. I think the next time we send out a calendar, we'll make that announcement. But if you know anyone who's looking for a rat-proof garbage can, contact Eric's office. Just a couple of Hudson Square, they just planted their 500th tree, and they're also going to be reopening the Freedom Plaza pretty soon for the spring, and they'll have some kind of an event over there. And I just want to ask all the committee chairs to make an extra effort to get your agendas in by Monday, April 25th. Next week's going to be a kind of a crazy week since well, the full board meeting being on Tuesday is unusual, but we have to get our calendar out at the same time. And that always causes a little bit of extra work in the office. So if you can get your agendas in by Monday, it'll be very helpful. And I just want to make note, in case some of you guys might have noticed, that there's one constituent in the conference room who's attending the meeting. That's Don Lee, former board member, and that's it. He's holding up signs, and I apologize for not removing the ladder in the background.
Okay.
I'll take any questions if you have them. Okay.
Thank you. Let's go review the draft April calendar. I would like to,
Calendar.
I'm sorry, a draft May calendar. The agenda says April. I'm reading straight from the agenda. Please take a look at the May calendar. Susan? You're muted.
Sorry, but if the 10th, since the 10th is open?
Yes. Would you like to take the 10th? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Will? Did you want to take the
It
10th
looks
too?
like we're back to sharing a date. So does that mean we're going to be at 5 again? And Bob and Josh, do you have a sense of what our SAPO load looks like? Just want to make sure we have enough time.
We don't have a sense of it yet, and if you want to talk tomorrow, we can.
Okay.
I mean, if you're flexible to do it to go on to the 2nd or the 16th, or if Patricia's flexible, we can split you guys. It's not a big deal.
I'm personally flexible for the 2nd, but I'd have to check with the committee.
Got it. All right. So if you could do that, maybe we can figure it out by Monday morning.
Okay, thanks.
Great, thank
We
you.
have the usual need for the 16th provisionally, and we just can't know so far ahead
Okay, thank you, Chanel.
for the accuracy.
Robin?
Yeah, I'm happy to hold the 23rd. I'm a little bit at the mercy of my presenter that month, so it might need to move around. But I think after the 15th, sometime between the 15th and the 23rd is going to work. But I'm just not
Okay.
100% sure. I'm just not 100% certain about the 23rd because it's really on them to tell me when they're available. So
Got it, okay. So technically you could do the 18th, but if there's a resolution, you'd basically have to have it ready to go ASAP because the board meeting is the next day. So, Susanna?
Yeah, for human services, I will not be here then. Although I have very able people in our committee who can handle that, but I don't yet know what our agenda is. And it might not be a hot topic, in which case, if I can slide it to June, would it help you guys to have that date back? That's the question. You can let me know.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
I
after
don't,
full board.
yeah, it's after
So-
full board, so it would go to the June meeting anyways. So that would give Robin, for example, more flexibility if her speaker is only available on the 26th.
All right, we'll keep that, we'll keep it. in touch.
Okay. Frederica?
Hi, everybody. We would normally take the second Wednesday, but we have nothing pressing. Quick update, if you recall, I brought to the executive committee before a request that we write about the.
Frederica, can I just come back to you on updates? We're just doing the calendar now.
Okay, but at this point, the land use committee has nothing.
Okay.
That's why I'm talking.
So that could be free as well. Okay. Any other calendar comments? Okay. Valerie, reopening working group, do you plan on meeting or still working on that?
Not at this time.
Okay,
We're
so
working
no
on
meeting.
something, but not at this time.
Okay, wonderful. Let's go through committee reports and we'll go in reverse order from the calendar since I usually I went the other way last month. Susanna, we'll start with you with human services.
We have two resolutions. We have a report on Greenwich House and changes that it's making to its service model, some slight changes that it's making in light of a new RFP that was issued by DIFTA, the Department for the Aging. And then we have a resolution on supporting their ongoing work, conducting, coordinating outreach in Washington Square Park. And then we have a resolution on 231 Grant Street.
Great. Will, I know, would you want to just sort of summarize that 231 Grand Street resolution? That this just
Yes,
like in 2 sentences, or would you want to do it, or should Will do it?
No, I'll do it. I
Okay.
think that what we will do in the meeting is I will read the first resolution and then I will ask Will if that's okay to read the second one. We
Perfect.
had a 5-3
That's
vote,
good.
five including a public member, 5-3 in favor of opposing the shelter, and 3 not in favor of opposing the shelter.
Okay, great. And just for everyone who's listening, the way this works is we vote at the committee level. The committee writes minutes, which includes any resolutions. And so 5-3 in favor of opposing the shelter, I should just be specific. And then the full board, all of these go to the full board. They're available a few hours before our meeting in a PDF package. When we used to meet in person, there would be copies, hard copies available as well for people to pick up. And then, that's what we discuss at our full board meeting, and we vote on that night. Thank you, Susanna. Valerie, Economic Development and Small Business and Reopening Working Group.
Janine, I just had a question on the,
Oh, sure.
given that we're taking a position on this shelter for next month and just the interest and that this is one of the 10 shelters in Chinatown, how are we going to handle that at the meeting?
Are you saying how are we going to handle voting on it, or how are
Well,
we
just
going to?
how is that meeting going to be held, given that we've had, hundreds of people? come
Yeah, I'll
together?
just read, absolutely. So the plans for the full board meeting, the public will sign up to speak at the public session via Google document. We will cap the public session at our discretion. If 20 people sign up, then 20 people will probably speak for 2 minutes. We have a lot of people sign up, we will shorten the amount of time. But we also are going to encourage people to submit online testimony. And this is going to be the first time we're doing it this way. It's going to be via Google document, and a view-only version will be available to all board members and to the public. So we are encouraging people to do that. So right now, historically, people would send a letter to the office, and the office would send it to the relevant committee chair and the board chair, and they would send it to their committees. This way, this will be in one document for all board members to see. And we'll have one for the shelter, and we'll have one for everything else. And we'll continue, and this will be the first month we're doing it, so I'm sure we'll come up with ways to improve that.
No, I meant the meeting next week, not the full board, the meeting. that
Oh,
we're
the
having
Susanna's
on
meeting?
Thursday, right?
It's gonna be a Zoom meeting, and I don't know, Susanna, that you're chairing that meeting. Do you have any?
Yeah, I'm not really sure what the question is. It will be
No, my
talking
question-
about 349 Canal Street.
Yeah, no, my question was, we're taking a position on this shelter, and this is one of the 10 shelters in Chinatown. So we're going to be asked again, because obviously this is the same issue, that we've heard. It's just for another location.
Yeah,
And-
well, it's a tricky question because we have never, we're not asked to take a position on shelters. We don't have a formal advisory role on shelters. We have not taken a position on any of the other, of the 3 shelters that were previously proposed for our community district. We only took a position on one when you were chair, which we took because there was such an outpouring of support that we felt we wanted to show that our community district, which is one of the most affluent in the city and has 0 shelters, supported this. Otherwise, we have never taken a position. Now we have taken a position. It does set a precedent. I don't know what we will do with that.
Yeah, but I just want to point out, I think the draft resolutions were just sent around today to the full board. So I'm sure many people have not had a chance to read them in detail, because a lot of work went into them. I just want to point out that the resolution is specifically about 231 Grand Street. It is not a resolution about shelters in Community Board 2. And the discussion for next Thursday's meeting will be, we're waiting to see what the provider is coming to present. And we'll be responding to what we learn at that meeting, and whatever happens will go, if there is a resolution, that will go to the May full board meeting. But that, separate issues, same topic.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I just asking because, the message was loud and clear. It's an individual, but it's also the totality. And it's something that we're going to be hearing. And so I don't know, this is the chance where the executive committee is brought together to talk about that. As far as that's what we've been hearing. That's what we're going to hear again. The board has spent so much time hearing testimony on this. And
Do you have a suggestion?
I don't know. We have 2 meetings scheduled on the same night. One's with multiple community boards, which is what the Chinatown community has been asking for. And, on the global issue, because I think the global issue is the biggest concern. And there's a lot of.
The one on multiple community boards is on cannabis. It is not.
No, that's my point, that we've scheduled what the Chinatown community has asked for on the same night. But now we're just having an update, whereas they would like the conversation to be global across the multiple community boards.
Well, I
And
think
what
that's
we've
a different
heard.
topic. We have not discussed having a joint meeting with community boards 1, 2, and 3 on shelters. And that might be a worthwhile topic to have in the future, but that was not the purpose of this meeting.
No, and also 349 Canal Street is way west.
Yes.
It's not in Chinatown. It's Soho. It's
Well,
Soho.
that's for
Okay, Carter, we're
Chinatown
not
to
gonna have
decide.
back and forth on this. Let me call on the other people who
Well,
raised
I
their hand.
appreciate, I mean, this is where we discuss.
I will
this
come back
issue.
to you, Carter.
correct?
I was asking for a specific suggestion. You did not have one. So let's listen to the other 3 hands that are raised. And then if you have a specific suggestion after that, I'm happy to call on you. But I want to first listen to everyone who has raised their hand. Ivy?
I just wanted to ask if you or anybody could re-explain the 2 resolutions that are having one resolution that the committee have voted. In
There's
support.
only one resolution.
There's
Ivy.
only one
There's
resolution.
one resolution. The resolution that was sent out is the resolution of our committee. It is a
So that-
resolution that votes 5-3 to oppose the shelter.
Okay, so we're not gonna have a second
But
resolution.
let me just, if for some reason that resolution did not get a vote of more than 50% and pass, then somebody could propose an alternative resolution, which presumably would be the opposite. And then we would take discussion on that, answer any questions on that, and vote on that the same way we would every resolution. So that would be the process. But if the board votes yes on the resolution on the floor, there would not be an alternative resolution proposed.
Okay, thank you.
That makes sense. Coral, Dawson?
Yeah, I have 2. When Carter was speaking, it did occur to me that I do think, and I think I've mentioned this before, it would be helpful for the Human Services Board to consider, globally what this community has voiced as prerequisites, like supportive housing, things like that, where we really need to consider that. And, maybe we can have more faith-based organizations involved as well, where there would possibly be less corruption or less for monetary gain. There's sort of a lot of parameters that could be considered as things that we're concerned about. And just also for every time we have these discussions, so that the provider can be more organized in their responses, so that we can have, more consistent responses.
I think these are excellent topics for future meetings, possibly for land use and housing as well.
Yeah, and then so the what you were saying about the marijuana thing for Chinatown, so that's the same night as the shelter?
They're staggered. There'll be one at 5:30 and the other will be at 7.
Because they certainly do, and I would as well, regard this as being in the same area as Chinatown. It certainly is 2 blocks historically. And they even included it in all of their discussions of those in the area. So I think it would be unfair to make people choose between the 2 meetings. And
well, you don't have to choose, because they'll be staggered, and you can also live stream them, or you can watch. One's more of a panel discussion. Mar?
Hi. So I agree with what Janine just said, but I'd also like to say that the cannabis meeting ended up being multiple boards because I reached out to multiple boards, because I felt, as the chair of the Equity, Race, and Justice Committee, that this was a multi-board conversation. Also, to alleviate some of the pressure on the Office of Cannabis Management, I wanted them to be able to address all of downtown at once. That said, as the chair of the committee that works a lot with Chinatown organizations and Chinatown residents and the AAPI community, very often I would be very happy to co-host a May meeting with Human Services on this topic and bring in all of the people I've been working with on all the other boards to address this topic, because it is also an equity issue. So I'm just putting that out there.
Okay, thank you, Mar. I think this is a good conversation to take offline, and we can come back and do some planning and figure it out from there. Any other questions and comments? Okay, thank you. Let's see. Well, I guess that was, do you have anything else to add about your, actually, while you're talking, Mar, about equity, race, and justice for this month? You want to just talk about the meeting?
Sure, I'll talk about it. So we are, sorry, I'll lower my hand. So the Equity, Race, and Justice Committee is hosting a cannabis event. I'll put it in the chat so everybody can read it. It is, the title is Downtown Cannabis, a community conversation. about the emerging cannabis business landscape. So we will be discussing with community boards 1, 3, and 4, the emerging cannabis landscape, all of these cannabis businesses that are going to come into our neighborhoods. Licensing will start rolling out as soon as December. The first stop for licensees will be the community board, very similar to the SLA committee. And so we want to share with our neighbors, you know, what regs are in place now, what may be coming down the pipeline, the business opportunities that are available, the equity opportunities that are available. We're going to discuss impact on our neighborhoods, who are the players, who are the decision makers, and everything cannabis. So our residents and community members know what to expect. It's at the Sheen Center at 7 p.m. on the 28th, and the borough president is also sponsoring. Any questions?
Okay, thank you, Mar. Valerie?
Thanks. For economic development and small business this month, we meet next Wednesday, April 27th at 6:30 p.m. via Zoom. We will be continuing our discussion about bodegas and the fast delivery grocery apps. We're kind of taking a bigger, broader view of what is the future of bodegas and delis and what kind of New York do we want to live in. It's really focused on kind of in this age of quick commerce, what are the potential effects of the oversaturation of venture-backed enterprises, such as these fast delivery grocery apps like Gorillas, Getter, Joker, and GoPuff, on the mom and pop businesses in our neighborhoods. And I've got Rachel Meltzer, Dr. Rachel Meltzer, who is a professor of planning and urban economics from the Harvard Graduate School of Design. She is formerly of the New School. And she's written extensively about neighborhood services, economics, retail, gentrification, and specifically bodegas. And I've got, likely will be mostly probably a conversation. We've got some other agenda items that I'll go through really quickly. But I've got one other ask out on a panelist for next week. So stay tuned, that'll be updated on the website. And then next we'll have a presentation by the Chinatown Bid/Partnership on their preliminary findings from the Chinatown Commercial District Survey. We'll have Chelsea Yamada, who's there. She's the Avenue NYC program manager, and she'll give us an update on, this will be a larger report that will be coming out on the SBS website, but she's kind of present some of the preliminary findings. And then third, I'll have a co-presentation by Ian Wang he's a legislative director from Councilmember Marte's office, and Isabel Chandler, who's the legislative director from Councilmember Rivera's office. And they will co-present on the commercial rent stabilization bill. It's intro 0093/2022. And this is really about establishing a system of commercial rent regulation applicable to retail stores of 10,000 square feet or less, manufacturing establishments of 25,000 square feet or less, and professional services or other offices underneath 10,000 square feet. Would result in the mayor appointing a 9-member commercial rent guidelines board responsible for annual establishment of these guidelines and rate of rent adjustments for covered commercial spaces. So if anyone on executive committee has questions about that they would like answered by our council members on this legislation, they are 2 of the co-sponsors. I'm going to be getting those into them this week, and I will also be emailing out that to the committee, but I can put the links to these, the legislation in the chat, and I also have a map from our last meeting where we had someone from Gorillas speak about the fast delivery grocery apps. I put together a map that shows all of the bodegas and delis in CB2 and grocery stores in CB2, as well as where we have these micro fulfillment centers. The 2 that we have in our district are actually in manufacturing M5 zone. So we have not experienced the kind of those micro fulfillment centers for the grocery apps in any of our use group 6 zoning.
Thank you. Susanna, you had a question?
Yeah, sorry, Valerie. This is the law about commercial rent control. Is that SBJSA? Who's going to be talking about that? Sorry, I missed what you said about
That's
that.
okay. We're going to have the legislative directors from Councilmember Marte's office and from Councilmember Rivera's office. They're two of the many co-sponsors on the bill. So.
Thank
And
you.
we'll also be getting, I'll put the link to the legislation in the chat in just a second. And really quickly, we'll also be getting an update from Ian from Councilmember Marte's office on the commercial or on the grocery delivery app legislation. I had gone over what was initially going to be 3 bills. It looks like it's going to be 2 bills. And there's just been they actually have a backlog of the bill drafting department in the city is understaffed. And so that's why those are taking a little longer. So we're just trying to be ahead so that we're ready, and we as a committee have been briefed on different areas of it. So we'll be ready to comment it and present something to the board on a position to vote on. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. Robin, Arts and Institutions.
Hi, yeah, we have 2 presenters coming up next Monday. No resolutions. One is our friend Jane Carey from the Whitney, but she is coming to actually speak about a new, relatively new coalition called the West Side Cultural Network. It's a combination of various cultural institutions and organizations that cross between CB2 and CB4. And then we'll be hearing from the new executive director of the Fire Museum, the New York City Fire Museum, Jennifer Brown, who will be talking about who she is and what's happening there and what's coming up. And I just want to briefly touch upon what happened this past month. We had a resolution for revocable consent related to the Triangle Memorial Fire Memorial. It's a pro forma situation. They just have to get approval for an overhang that goes out too far. And then the Equity, Race and Justice Committee came and presented a exciting resolution about the African Grove Theater that we are very happy to be co-signers on. They really did the heavy lifting. We just gave them some feedback. So we're gonna hear that in full board. That's it.
Thank you. Robin or Mar, do you want to just share like a 2-sentence history of the theater? Since we Mar,
let them do it.
So from 1821 to 1823, possibly 1827, because we don't have a ton of history, the African Grove Theater existed on the site at 181 Mercer, the corner of Mercer and Bleecker. There, it was one of the first, if not the first, African American theater in New York, and they performed Shakespeare, and people got mad and they burned down the theater in 1823. I'm not laughing, it was sad, but it was an amazing place. We were treated to a tour of an exhibit about the African Grove by Professor Michael Dinwiddie. And it's a place of great history. And so we do think that one of the theaters that's being built in the Zipper building should be named to honor that rich and important American history.
Thank you. Thanks, Mom. Chanel, why don't we go to you for landmarks?
And Chanel, can I just interrupt? When you talk about the rezos, can you also let us know what the votes were? Because it's not in your summary that you sent to Bob.
For what? Vote for what?
The votes on the resolutions are not complete. You have it in there for some of the rezos, but not all of them.
Oh, they're all unanimous. You can just, whoever edits can edit it.
Okay.
We had nothing really remarkable. We had one very nice presentation from the Rattlesnake Theater that occupies a portion of the campus of St. John's Episcopal Church on 11th Street, on 4th Street. And it's a benchmark of how to do accessible entries without defacing the building. In fact, they improved the building. And a couple sort of thorny ones, but nothing exceptional. We have only one tentative return for next month so far, but the pattern has just never been established of when and how many come in. So we don't know.
Okay. Thank you, Chanel. Any questions? Let's go to Frederica Siegel, land use.
Hi, all. Old business department. If you recall, I had brought to your attention that there was something called a New York City rezoning commitments tracker that had not been updated in time. And in fact, it does now reflect the fact that the Soho NoHo Chinatown rezoning happened, and all of the commitments are there. Also, I think I'd spoken to you about the commitment that the city had made to increase the staff of the loft board, and the committee decided that we would give the new executive director some time to settle in, and then we would invite her to come and address the committee. So in the meantime, we have a resolution supporting Deborah Glick's New York State Assembly bill, now also Senator Brian Kavanaugh's state Senate bill, which is an act to amend the interim multiple dwelling law regarding the occupancy of joint living work quarters for artists. The purpose of the bill is to permit residents who live in joint live work units and who are in residence prior to December 31st of 2021 to continue to occupy such units regardless of their status as certified artists. Of course, there are many questions left to answer, but Assemblymember Glick's bill is a first step towards protecting the current residents. Future legislation depends on sorting out what's within the purview of the city versus the state, but this amendment is to the laws of the state of New York. And again, it's just a first step. So our meeting was attended by more than 150 people, not one of whom spoke against this bill, and the Land Use Committee voted unanimously to support it.
Okay.
You want me to just read the therefore, Janine, or?
No, the board sent it out. Does anyone have any
Okay,
broad questions? We'll be discussing it and voting on it at full board.
Right.
Any questions? And I just want to add, I think I got a reminder, like a notice today. Senator Hoylman is also co-sponsoring it, I believe, in the Senate.
Well, actually, that's very nice, but it's really great that Senator Kavanaugh is co-sponsoring it because he is the chair of the Housing Committee in the U.S. I mean, in the New York State Senate.
Thank you, Frederica. Patricia, schools and education.
Yes, sure. We had 3 agenda items this past month. The first on school budget cuts, discussion with Yolanda Smith from the Independent Budget Office. The second was by a presentation by iMentor. They gave a presentation looking for mentors for first generation high school kids going off to college. And the third was a follow-up discussion on food service bonuses for school food service workers that work through the pandemic, providing meals to our community and students. And we wrote a resolution on that, which we'll be presenting at full board. And that's about it.
Okay. Any questions for Patricia? Okay, thank you. Susan Kent, bylaws?
Not much, but based on feedback that we got at our last meeting, it looks like the communications policies will be coming up for, they'll be presented to the board for a vote at next month's meeting. And we will be just going forward discussing standing rules of order and procedure. So if anyone is interested in that, please come to our May meeting. And otherwise, That's it, except I would ask for the calendar for May, I'd like to start the meeting at 5:30 versus 6:30.
Okay, for May 10th.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. Will, Benish, quality of life?
Yes, thanks. Thanks, Janine. Hi, everybody. We have 5 resolutions on street activities this month. One interesting thing that came before us was basically a sidewalk closure request, essentially just for a line outside of a pop-up, which is kind of interesting because we were happy they came to us, but these kind of lines often form outside of stores that are very hyped up anyway, particularly in Soho and NoHo and those commercial areas. We decided as a committee that we want to add some permanent language to the CB2 website, sort of a best practices for pop-ups like this, where we essentially recommend that they do an online registration and timed entry to try to cut down on top of those, on those lines. So that's sort of something that's come out of that, that we want to make permanent and put on the website. Let's see. Another one that came before us is the Leaf Festival and the meatpacking bid. Some of you may remember this from last year. It was a pretty successful event. They're looking to really expand the scope of it this year to the extent that it's essentially going to shut down most of the streets and blocks within the meatpacking district. We felt that the traffic plan had not really been thought out yet enough for us to make a decision on this application. So we actually have asked them to go to the Traffic and Transportation Committee for some advice here and to put together a detailed traffic mitigation plan. So I guess Shirley's not on here right now, but that's something that we're hoping they're going to do. So that was essentially laid over. I think those are the 2 main ones I wanted to mention. And then other than street activities, we did have an update from the Department of Sanitation, which I think was pretty successful. We learned a couple of things and we're really establishing a dialogue with them, which is good. So that's something that I'd like to make a regular part of our committee going forward. Maybe once a quarter or something like that, get an update from them.
Okay. Thank you. Great ideas about some policies. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yeah, Ritu?
So a lot of folks have been talking about the uptick in crime, and we really haven't had great follow through. I know that the captain from the 6th precinct is coming to our next full board meeting, but is there a venue perhaps within quality of life which could consider some safety issues?
Do you have some specific suggestions?
For the community liaisons to attend on a rotating basis from different precincts. And this would be with regards to crime. It could be with regards to the numerous e-vehicles using our sidewalks. It could be noise complaints in the meatpacking, for example. The drummer that keeps me up every weekend that's underneath the High Line. I could think of a lot of things that might fit into it, but I just kind of wanted to throw that out there for consideration.
Can I say something about that?
Yeah, and just thank you. Thanks for raising your hand.
Yeah, sorry. We would try to address this one. There was a point when safety was in the Social Services Committee. It was in our purview. Now it is not. But we reached out to all the precincts, and one of the things that they have their own committee meetings, community meetings. So one thing that they said was that it would be burdensome for them to have to add an additional meeting every month to come to the community board. But we did think, and they did.
It wouldn't be every month. It would be on a rotating basis.
Exactly.
So
well, also, yeah. Or also, the other thing one could do is like do one twice a year or something like that. I mean, I think the thing you really want to be able to do is share crime stats, because reading the Post and seeing crime stats might be the same thing or might be different things. And obviously there are a lot of public safety issues, but there's a question of how to.
They should also be hearing what's going on in the community and from us as a board.
Let me just make I think these are some good suggestions. We've been trying to get, we've trying to do is trying to reach out to our precinct commanders and asking them to attend our board meetings. I know for last month, the 5th precinct had some people listening for a big chunk of the meeting, but they did not present, which I think was great that they were listening. And the 6th precinct is coming next week. And frankly, they were, because the meeting's on Tuesday, because it's next week and not this week, they were able to attend because they're away on vacation this week. But Bob, let me turn it over to you, and then Carter.
I was just going to remind folks, as I'm sure most of us know, that a good forum for letting the precincts, not just the precincts, but the commanding officers know of issues in the area are the community council meetings that each precinct has, and we could probably all take better advantage of those.
Okay.
I think it would be much more effective for them to come to one of our meetings, to be perfectly frank.
Okay.
Look,
Well,
if we
let's,
feel quality of life is the
um,
right venue, I'm open to, reaching out
So
to
let's
them and
have
seeing
it-
if we
I'm
can have.
gonna hear from Carter and then Will, and then let's have a discussion offline about the best way to move these discussions forward. Carter, you have a suggestion or
Yeah.
comment?
Yeah, I was going to say, they also have the NCO meetings. We used to have those on our calendar. It might be a good thing to put them back on our calendar so that people know when the meetings are, or how they can get information. And just, I'm just going to plug the community council meetings, everybody from the precincts there. It's not just the captain, it's the whole upper management. Donna, Mar, and I and Janine have all, regularly gone to the 6th precinct, and the 1st precinct meetings. And I mean, that's a great place to go each month, and also for them to develop a connection to us as residents, since have 4 different precincts. And the NCO meetings, they always want people to go. And those are great email lists to get on for your local immediate block area, because the NCO officers deal with reoccurring problems. That's why they started that program.
Could you put information in the chat about that?
Yeah,
Carter?
I've been talking to Bob in the office about adding the precinct meetings to our calendars, and on the 6th and the 1st have the most regular schedules. So we'll work with getting those back on our calendar, now that, because there were some that didn't meet for a while because of during COVID, but now everything's pretty much getting back to regular, and these meetings have been via Zoom, so they're also easy to attend. Donna?
The community liaison for the precincts is also helpful. I should know, but I do not know who is our one for the 6th, but Darlene Lutz has been really good coming to our, full board and just giving a quick summary of what's gone on. And I found that also helpful. So maybe we could encourage the different precincts to have their liaison, whoever the community person, come and give a quick update in addition to us attending those meetings. People need to go to them. They hold the NCO meetings and the other meetings, and I've been to a few of them where it's very frustrating because not enough people have shown up, So if we can get anything on our calendar to let people know about those meetings, they really want to hear from everybody. And I think it's a great place for people to be having that dialogue with our precincts.
Thank you, Donna. Okay. Bob and Donna, you want to do SLA 1 and 2 or 2 and 1?
Sure, I'll go first, I guess. We had 17 applications. We heard 12 of them. The rest of them were laid over. One was a no-show that was for a municipal extension. All of our votes were unanimous with a deny unless, except for that municipal extension, which is obviously a deny. And I don't think there's really nothing exceptional this month, except for a follow-up with the 2 that I mentioned last month. So one was the one going into the old Chumley space, Penn and Farm Social Club. They laid over, they got a new attorney, so they should be coming to us next month. And the other one was this application for some young guy on 13th Street. That was just a whole back and forth. You'll read it in the resolution. I gave you a summary last month, and I believe we got them to agree to the earlier closing times, which were more in line with the original application that they presented to the SLA. And I'm just waiting for them to sign the stipulations, confirming that. So with that signed stipulations, that was a deny unless as well. So that's it for my committee, I think, unless anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Donna. Oh, I think I
Coral?
saw briefly, Coral.
I just wanted to put in the chat the crime stats for the first precinct, and grand larceny had like 322 grand larceny like for year to date. Like it jumps off. Like when you look at the numbers, they're huge, and we're not really addressing it. So I encourage people to look at the stats, and I really do think we need to somehow handle this more directly. One other thing I wanted to mention, and this is sort of out of turn, but I don't know where to put it, is we haven't really done anything about the Ukrainian situation, in the Ukrainian church. The Holy Orthodox Ukrainian Church is in our district. So I don't know who the right person is to reach out, but I think maybe we should do something because it is on Broome Street before Bowery. And I know that's like a main Ukrainian church for the city. I don't know if anyone has a relationship or knows how to do that. I just think that in some way we should be recognizing what they're going through, and they're part of our community. So we should do something.
Okay, yes, 359 Broome Street. Thank you. I actually did not know it was there. I knew that there was the one in the East Village.
And it's pretty, every time I walk by, it's very active. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. We'll figure out a way to follow up on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Coral. Okay. Bob
Yeah,
Healy?
sure. Yeah, sure. So SLA2, thanks SLA1 for taking on so many applications this month, because the big applications that we're handling were was the Jane Street Social Club in Barbuda. Fortunately, we were able to work everything out. So everything is denial-less on the bigger applications. I just wanted to point out that Zach Weinstein was really the force behind working all that out. It was very complicated, and he stepped forward on behalf of that particular community and did a great job. I guess fortunately or unfortunately, there's agreements in place. Whether or not those agreements in place actually prevent the intrusions that are likely to occur is yet to be seen. But at least there was tremendous compromise on both sides, and hopefully things will work out down the road in the future.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you, Bob. And last but not least, Rich Kekapolo, Parks and Waterfront.
Yeah, hi. We met on the 6th. There were a presentation by representatives from the Department of Parks and Recreation. They talked about various in-process and planned projects in the district. There were 16 different open spaces that we discussed, running from Washington Square Park to Mercer Playground, to Little Red Square, to William Passanante Ball Field, et cetera. The big conversation, or the biggest sort of revelation, was about the Tony Dapolito Recreation Center, where a planned repair and renovation project that was started several years ago and exposed great structural issues, more than anticipated, and required the Department of Parks and Recreation to close the entire facility, continues. And they announced that the center cannot be opened until the full project is completed, which includes the outdoor pool. So the facility and the pool will once again not be open this summer, which will make the third summer in a row that the pool will not be open. So there was great disappointment and frustration expressed by the many attendees. There were questions on how much money was spent to date and how much will be spent in the future. Really, the Parks and Recreation reps did not have many alternatives for the community. They explained that there are none available nearby. The only options are the existing rec centers north in Chelsea and sort of east on Houston. The request was made by our committee to investigate the viability of offering some sort of bus service to these alternative centers. That was that was really it. Other updates you can just read in the notes.
Thank you, Rich. Any questions for Rich? Okay. I think we covered every committee. Does anyone have any new business?
Oh, yeah, I had wondered that question that I asked you earlier about the role of non-committee members.
Yes.
Discussion. Is there any guidance on that?
Yeah, I reached out to the borough president's office, to Trisha Shimamura, and I also, and she was gonna check internally and got back to me and basically said, you know, what we had discussed, which I had emailed you, is pretty much the situation. So, well, if we have a committee meeting during the public session, the first questions or comments would be from committee members, public and full board members, and then other CB2 members who are in attendance, and then the public. And then during business session, it would be from committee members and then non-committee members. The vote at the committee level is just the board members who are attending the meeting. So if there's a board member at the committee level who's not present because they're sick or work conflict, then they would not be able to vote, just the ones in attendance. And non-board board members who are not on the committee would not vote at the committee level, as is shown in it. That's basically from our bylaws. How the chair runs the meetings is really up to the chair. So those are just suggestions. But, you know, and I sent along you run the meetings according to Robert's Rules of Order, which is what we pretty much regularly do. We hear from everyone before somebody gets to speak twice. And, you know, no crosstalk, no, you know, it's the conversation between the person speaking and the person chairing the meeting, which we're obviously all working hard on not doing, but it's hard. So does that answer your question?
It helps. Yeah, it helps. I mean, it doesn't, yes. I mean, I think that I was always operating under a different understanding, which was that in business session, if you're not on the committee, you really don't, you know, you play a kind of reserved role. But this is helpful. Now anyone can sort of have a full-throated involvement. That's fine. Thank you.
And I just want to be clear, like, if there are board members who want to attend meetings, to just listen. I call it the equivalent of, you know, in the past, when we met in person, you might be very interested in agenda item number 3. You come in, sit in the back of the room, you know, come in 30 minutes late, sit in the back of the room, listen to agenda item 3 and leave. So, I mean, so the Zoom version of that, you know, not everybody, if you're a board member and you're joining a meeting, you don't, unless you choose to be done, you do not have to be promoted to panelists. It's the equivalent of, I'll call it, sitting in the back of the room. Susan, Ken?
Yeah, I just want to point out, as our bylaws say, as long, you know, a lot of latitude is given to committee chairs on how they run their meetings, and that they have the right to establish rules of order and procedure as they see fit, provided they don't violate other provisions of the bylaws or other city regulations or laws. So I would encourage anybody who is concerned about these things to think about just setting up, you know, rules for your own self, so that, you know, anyone attending is aware that this is how things are done, and you can head off, you know, problems going forward.
Thank you, Susan.
I have a very useful opening.
Oh, wait, Chanel, let me call on Michael Levine, and then I'll call on you, okay? Michael?
Yes, thank you, Janine. As a board member who attends several committee meetings of which I'm not a member, I do appreciate the courtesy that committee chairs have been offering to board members to participate, to ask questions, and in some cases to participate during business session. I believe that this saves time at the full board meeting. So I endorse this practice, and I encourage the committee chairs to continue it. It works, it informs us, and again, I believe it saves a lot of time at full board meetings. So thank you for raising this issue. I appreciate the courtesy committee chairs have been offering to me as a non-committee member at certain committee meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Chanel?
I have a whole beginning thing, partly because we keep having new presenters and they need to know how the meeting is going to run. And we say that at the business session, others by invitation can speak. And that seems to satisfy most things.
Yeah, I think that's great. And the key part is laying it out up front, so there's no confusion about the process. And it's not arbitrary. It's basically how you're laying it out. Thank you.
And we have not been able to control, even with stern remarks, the chat
Okay.
from public in particular.
Yeah.
I don't look at it, but I see this happening.
Mhm. Oh, well, you know what, then let me raise that as a second new business item, because I know we had discussed, it's a blur sometime in, post March 2020 about the chat. We were on I was on a call with Josh Thompson and somebody, the district manager for Community Board 8, and we were just talking about how they handle some issues. And one thing that they completely shut down their chat, because when we meet, because they wanted the Zoom meetings to mirror as much as possible the full the in-person meetings. And in-person meetings, if there were two people talking, we'd ask them to leave the room and take the conversation outside so it wouldn't interrupt people. So we wouldn't have side conversations. And obviously, I guess but the chat is also very helpful for putting information in, like, here's the information on the cannabis forum, or here's a link to the full board package, or this is how you register to attend the state. It's very good for providing information. But it also, there have been meetings where we've shut it down because it's become very inappropriate. Susanna?
Yeah, I just wondered if anyone here is familiar with the Q&A function. Someone suggested that to me instead of the chat. I mean, the chat or something like that is very helpful. I don't look at it during the meeting, but I always read them afterwards. But they do sometimes tend to be quite nasty. Whereas someone said that I don't know, for some reason the Q&A is a different function. I just didn't know if anyone was familiar with that.
We've used Q&A for, several committee meetings, particularly for larger meetings. We've done it for the high school panels and schools and education. And, because sometimes there's going to be somebody who's maybe doesn't feel comfortable raising their hand and asking a question out loud, but want to make sure their question is asked. Now, sometimes there are questions that are completely off topic and we have the discretion not to answer them as well. And that's happened in person as well. That I think it's particularly for larger forums, and that could be helpful, particularly if there's a question that like 50 people have. That's, you just want to make sure it's answered. Coral?
Yeah, I just looked on, because I wanted to drop in the chat on the first precinct police page, and it doesn't even have a way to sign up on the
we'll find it. I would agree that it's not as user friendly at all the precincts as you would like. In fact, you have to get on their mailing list, and then you have to RSVP, and then you receive the Zoom link.
Yeah, but it doesn't even say that you can do that. Like, so somebody would already have to know to ask that, because it doesn't even direct you that way.
Yeah, so that's why we can get information on our calendar, but it's we can't tell people how to run their websites or their meetings.
No, I agree that, but I think that's why, even more so, why we need them to come to ours, because they're making it very difficult to participate in theirs.
Thank you. We were just discussing on the use of the chat, and if we want to change anyway. Right now, we've pretty much.
No, I think everyone should have an opportunity to say what they want to, and you know what, we can just not pay attention to some of the stuff on there.
Okay.
I mean, I see no reason to censor the chat.
Okay, wonderful. Bob?
Sorry, I got the hiccups. So I guess the one time where I get concerned about the chat forum is during when people are voting executive period of time. In other words, during a public session or at other times, I think it makes sense. And I don't want to quell anyone's opinion, but when it comes down to actually voting an executive, I do think that people can be swayed by comments that weren't, or someone could just make a comment that could be untruthful, and that could sway somebody. And so I get nervous when it occurs during the executive session. I think it could be used effectively by somebody to, I'm not gonna say corrupt but certainly erode the process. So that's where I tend to be more concerned with the chat. I think the chat can be very helpful. The problem is that the chat can also be destructive to a certain extent.
Yes, thank you. Carter?
Yeah, up through last March, the chat was just shut off for attendees when we got to business session during full board. So, and then prior to it, it was available for people to put in information and cite that's was our common practice. And I think during SLA meetings, we've also have done that in the past as well.
Okay, so hearing this conversation, I think I would just like to suggest that we go back to our old, basically where once we enter business session at a committee or full board meeting, that we turn off the chat for attendees like we have in the past. And for the full board, we'll work with Mark Moss and, have him take care of that during the meeting. And I will add specifically how to do that to the Zoom instructions for each of the committee members, because I don't believe that's on the sheet.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
A helpful guideline that seems to work always is to try to replicate a live meeting.
Yes. Okay, yes, that absolutely.
And we don't have people yakking away in the background.
Yeah, okay. Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, do we have a motion to adjourn at 7:43 p.m.? Susan, second? And Susanna? All right, I'm all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Bye.
See you guys next Tuesday. Thank you.
Good meeting, Janine.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.